borrowers are having difficulty making payments.
Yes.
Many folks who are in the 30-month deferment period. Many other folks, the deferment period has ended and they're in the repayment. And that 30 months was very helpful, but a lot of small businesses are still struggling. They've either gone out of business altogether or they are struggling. We had a fellow reach out to us a week ago, say, I can keep my business afloat if the SBA will let me reduce my payments.
Yes.
And they do have a program for that.
Hardship Accommodation.
Which we talk about in our guidebook with detailed step-by-step how SBA's Hardship Accommodation works, how you can request it. It's only good for 6 months, and how you can request an extension of that. Now, we don't know if SBA is actually approving the extensions. So businesses are struggling because, every day you open the newspaper, there's a recession, there's no recession. Unemployment's great, unemployment's not great. The economy's doing great, it's not doing great. What is it? It is what... If you think about this nonsense with the OIG and SBA's focus on fraud and Congress's focus on fraud, people wanting to get forgiveness for their COVID-19 EIDL, we can't see that it's going to happen at all. And if so, it's certainly not going to happen anytime soon because businesses are struggling, but all the SBA wants to talk about is fraud. And as we saw, 0.001% conviction rate on the number of loans that were made is ridiculous.
I want to ask a question because you're the expert. With forgiveness, you think it's not going to happen, period, full stop.
That's my opinion.
That's your opinion. Can you expound upon the fact that the EIDL program, with them getting paid back the loan plus interest, is that one of the reasons? Why would they shut that down as a revenue source? Is that something that would be germane?
That's why I like hanging around with her, because she comes up with a perspective that I hadn't thought of. If we go back to TARP, does anybody remember what TARP was? Apparently, the United States government made a profit on the TARP program, on the loans that went out there, the too big to fail argument. On the loans they made to the banks and to Wall Street to save them. They made a profit. So going to what Linda just said, do we really think that out of this $390 billion of COVID-19 EIDL loans that are out there in repayment, that the United States government, the Congress, is going to authorize forgiving those loans when the government's actually making money? I mean, the interest rate for a for-profit organization was 3.75%, 30-year fixed, 2.75% for a nonprofit. While that's not zero, it's certainly a very reasonable interest rate for the small business owner, but it's also a very healthy return. Where can you go and get 3.75% on $150,000? Hurricane Katrina happens, 2005. The United States government steps in, FEMA rushes in. Well, rushes is a loosely applied term for all those folks in New Orleans and Louisiana. The FEMA steps in and the SBA steps in, and they do disaster assistance for small businesses, for homeowners, for renters, and so forth. And the SBA at the time had a statutory cap of $5 million of disaster loans in any given jurisdiction. Because of the widespread devastation and economic loss, the SBA came to the Congress back in 2005 and said, listen, the $5 million cap is not happening. We need you to expand the cap for this jurisdiction so we can lend more money to help this area recover. And so the Congress and the White House at the time negotiated and said, okay, we'll expand the cap with one proviso. These loans are no longer forgivable under any circumstances. So it's
that
there.
might have been a new precedent.
18 years ago, we see people come on our comments here on YouTube, and then we see about, they call us up, and I heard on Reddit, I heard on that YouTube guy over here, and this way, that the loans were forgivable. Yet they were until Hurricane Katrina came along. There's no prohibition against selling assets, only a prohibition of doing so without SBA's prior notification and permission. And they have a bureaucratic process for that. There's a form you have to fill out, et cetera, et cetera. But where SBA changed the rules on the loan agreement, later on, they said to me, well, he's going to have to take the proceeds from the sale of the assets and pay off the entire loan balance. I said, wait a minute, that makes no sense. He has a loan. That's like telling me if I sell my living room furniture, I have to pay off my mortgage. And she said, well, that's what we're going to do. So they're making it up as they go along.
Okay, so he's going to pay off the loan and the loan is done, but he's also not going to enjoy
the full sale of the assets.
Proceeds from the sale.
And he had plans expanding his business. And I said that to her. She said, well, the money's not supposed to be used for expanding the business. I said, well, first of all, it doesn't say that anywhere in your loan agreement. He already spent the money during COVID to pay his operating expenses, to run his business. The money's spent already. He now has a loan that he's paying back. I said, and the selling an asset is separate and apart. All it does is adjust your lien position. She said, well, that's how we're going to do it, and that's it.
That's how we're going to do it.
And if he doesn't want to do it, just let me know. I'll close the file right now. And he can't sell the assets. We're talking about $320,000 of assets that this business wanted to sell. Imagine that these assets were forklifts or printing presses or something, and the factory needs to sell them because they're out of date, or they're broken, or they don't work anymore. They need to sell them so they can buy new equipment. And the SBA says, well, you have to pay off the COVID loan first. This is the reality, folks.
This is why we wrote the post-closing blueprint, because this shit is not in the loan agreement. And this is what we're confronted with people when they try to do something in their business and they couldn't understand what the SBA was doing or saying or how they were guiding them. So that's when we got involved. And this is real stuff in real time. It's kind
That's why we're encouraging you, buy the guidebook, because we tried to anticipate. As I wrote that thing over the last 12 months, I sat down and gave it deep thought to consider every single situation that could come up where you as a business owner would need to interact with the SBA. And I give you a step-by-step instruction on how to do it and what to expect as a result and what to do if the result doesn't match your expectations.